InnerFight Endurance Q&A Show 46. This week we are talking about running and the role of arms while running, cramping when running, lifting heavy for cyclists, thoughts on some nutrition, low carb, high fat diets for endurance athletes. We've got how to handle nutrition during a marathon, how to reduce body fat, and lastly some thoughts on the 50-50-50 just gone this past weekend. So let's get straight into it. You know already about Secret Training. It's here at the gym. Come along, get your stuff. We had them sponsor the InnerFight Endurance Into the Darkness event on the weekend just gone. We had the super hydration mix and loads of the isotonic watermelon gels, which people were very happy to get their hands on. So that was awesome to see, and yeah, it was an epic event. And actually you can start with two questions that we had in from the boss regarding the event. And he firstly asked how many people finished the 50-50-50 and is it harder than people think? And well, if we look at who started the full thing and who finished the full thing, only 2 people finished, and I think around 4 or 5, maybe 6 set out to complete it all. So that's 50k bike, 50k run, 50k bike, and yeah, only 2 finished. Massive shout out to Rob Jones and Zoe Van Mill, who actually did the full distances on all of those. Not to take away from all the other epic runners that did 50k. Some did it as a group, as a relay, which is awesome, and some just cycled from anywhere from just 50 up to 100 to 150. So the main point of the event is to get people out there, get people pushing themselves and improving themselves through endurance, and that was exactly what happened. So it was awesome to see. Right, let's get going on the questions this week. We haven't got much time, and we've got quite a few to get through. So the first one is from @sad.z, and he's asking what was the role of arms during running, specifically for endurance, not sprinting. So they're quite different in both cases. So with sprinting, a lot of the power comes from the arms, and you'll notice a lot of the sprinters that you see sort of Olympic level have got massive arms to really help them drive the body forward and get power in another way into their run as they're sprinting, but it's only sort of 10 to 20 seconds, so they need as much as they can get. Obviously for endurance it's a little bit different. The arms, sort of the role of the arms within endurance running is more about keeping the body in a balanced position. So I talk about it a lot with my guys, but if they're deviating off the center line with arms coming too far across their midline, or maybe flowing down behind them and taking momentum out of the run stroke, we want to try and change that and get the arms moving really just in a forward or backwards, but it's not actually pushing you backwards motion. So you send your arm forward and then you sort of catch up to it with your body, and that means that your hand's only going from chest height to hip height. Another function of it is that it keeps your chest in a nice neutral position as well and stops you closing off the lungs, which a lot of people tend to do as they're running longer and longer, is as they come across their midline, they close up around their chest and actually reduce and restrict the amount of breath that they can get in. So yeah, the arms really is more about rhythm and balance when it comes to endurance running, and shouldn't be ignored. Next question from @JackHammond93, and he asks how to stop cramping on a long run, and then he adds on to it, which is normally the case, is it all to do with salt? So a lot of people think they get cramps and it's low salt. Actually, salt isn't the defining factor of cramping. It can be a factor, but you have to be really depleted in salts for it to be a factor within cramp. More likely is the muscle isn't conditioned well enough for the stress that you've put it through. So people tend to cramp towards the end of their long runs, and that's normally because they're still either quite new to the long run, or they're just not conditioned for that final piece of the long run. If it's sort of calf cramping, that's normally the case. If you're running sort of quite often, what you see is people who normally run anywhere from an hour to 90 minutes, and then their long run goes to like 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours, 3 hours, almost double what their normal run is. They're just not conditioned themselves and the muscle that is getting cramped to go that lot much further. So a way to combat that is to do back-to-back runs. That can help condition a muscle. Do strength work can also help condition that particular muscle. And then, yeah, you might want to look at salts, but I think Jack is from the UK. I can't see it being a huge factor there. Out here, certainly, you're depleting a lot of your salts out of your sweat, but it shouldn't be the defining factor for getting cramp. It's normally a muscle conditioning issue. Having said that, it's no bad thing to keep electrolytes and salts within your body fluid up. So taking on salt tablets and electrolytes day to day anyway is no bad idea to help, and just see if that does help you, because sometimes it can. And also just make sure that when you are on that electrolyte point, just take a look at what you actually are using. So a lot of the electrolyte stuff out there, they've put in sweeteners and sugars that you don't necessarily want to have in if you're just drinking it as a day-to-day fluid. Cool, check that out, mate. Let us know how you get on. Next one, at Hussein_AT, and he just simply asks, how heavy should cyclists lift? I'm assuming he means in the weight room and possibly lower body. There's no one set rule for this. I think cyclists should cycle their lifting, so you should be going from periods of doing more conditioned weights, so you'd say the more lighter weights, more reps, endurance style rep ranges, and then cycle that through to your heavy sort of 3RM, working up to 3RM ranges. That obviously needs to be cycled in with your training program, your cycling training program as well. You don't want to be lifting for a really heavy phase and then going to try and sort of smash FTP, PBs and things like that, because neuromuscularly it'll absolutely wreck you. So in terms of a number, I always try to see my guys get up to 1.5 times their body weight in a squat and in a deadlift. And once they hit that, I don't really need to see any more. So that's a good number to aim for, 1.5 times body weight. No more really needs to be done than that. But if you're not there, then you've got some strength targets to focus on. Next question, at Peter_Collinson6. And he asks, how to reduce body fat percentage? It's a question as trainers we're more and more asked. There's a few ways to do it. One is increase your muscle mass, and then your resting metabolic rate will be higher, and you will burn more body fat as your day-to-day fuel. If you are also including a diet that is either keeping you neutral or in a deficit of calories. So that actually sounds quite conflicting with increasing muscle, because to increase muscle you need to deliver fuel to the muscle in order for it to grow. So it becomes a mix. You have to find what works for you, but it also ties in with at try.fly.auh's question, which is my thoughts on low carb, high fat diets for endurance athletes. And endurance athletes tend to be known for this sort of skinny fat look. If you want performance, then a decrease in body fat is certainly going to help you. And also, you might want to stay away from a more low-carb diet. Performance, studies show, performance tends to come through diets that have carbohydrates, because that's where carbohydrates are delivering the best source of energy to your muscles. So my thoughts on low-carb, high-fat diets for endurance athletes and how to reduce body fat is to eat enough energy on the days that you're working hard, and i.e. making sure you get a good balance of carbohydrates, fats and protein in. On days where you're exercising less, eat lower amounts of energy, so lower carb, fat and protein. And on days when you're recovering, you want to eat, again, about similar amounts of carbohydrates and fat ratio that you normally would, and have a little bit more protein in your diet to help with the recovery stages. So essentially, no, I don't think low carb is good for endurance athletes if they want performance. I think if you're going super, super long, it can be a good way. I think it depends a lot on your situation. But my main point to this all is take in more carbs on your harder training days, eat more protein on your recovery days, and that will give you about a right amount of fat to be having within your diet. And that should help you reduce body fat, train better, and get better results. Cool, we got one last final question and a minute left on the clock for me to get through it. And it is, what is the best way to handle your nutrition on a marathon? Can you only have gels, or is food an option? And at Pickles3088 asks this. No, you don't need to just have gels on a marathon. You can eat whatever you want, but it depends, again, what your goal is for that marathon. So obviously gels are very easy to hold. They're very easy to carry with you while running. They're very easy to take on board. So that's why gels are probably the best option. And then you just drink to thirst sort of at the aid stations. But if gels don't work for you, or you don't like them, or your goal for the marathon is to just finish it, then you can certainly work out how to get more real food within your diet during the race. To basically just stick to 60 up to 65 to 70 grams of carbohydrate per hour, and try to limit fats and proteins, as that will mess up absorption of the carbohydrates into your gut and cause some stomach GI issues. If you get that right, you're sorted.